first community forum and our panel discussion here with 5 really dedicated, wonderful humans. I'm really excited that you guys are in one room, and it's really inspiring to see people doing and thinking and really sharing what they believe. So, as you know, this is our community forum, and we're going to have a few more throughout the summer. It's not always going to be in this space. We're going to be kind of organizing where it could be more public, where, if it is in this place, how we're going to do it next time. So any input is welcome. And yeah, you can see it on our website. So I'll have all of you introduce yourself really quickly, and maybe like a one sentence, whatever you feel like talking. The cloud chips or something. and then we can get into our discussion about art and activism and the housing crisis in San Francisco. What we can do about it.
Yeah.
So let's give them all a round of applause.
Well, we're going to introduce ourselves. Erin, why don't you?
Oh, it's good.
Hey, my name's Erin McElroy. I'm here with the Anti-Eviction Mapping Project and Eviction Free San Francisco. And something random. It's really nice to be sitting here with you all. I've been standing, protesting all day, jumping up and down. Same thing yesterday, so I'm really excited to just chill out and talk. Thanks for having me.
I'm Benito Santiago. I've been Ellis active last year, December 13th, and I had 120 days to get out, and I will begin April 13th this year. Still there. I'm going to fight to still stay.
I'm Shonda Shion Raddick, and in my Benito, currently fighting an eviction. We were supposed half of my building on 1049 Market Street between 6th and 7th. Half of my building was supposed to be out by last Thanksgiving and the other half by last Christmas. So approximately half our building is still holding strong, but we're not secure yet with that eviction.
My name is Tommy Alcoli-Necca with the Housing Rights Committee of San Francisco. I've been working with housing rights for the last 14 years, and before that I spent 3 years at the Castro doing anti-eviction work because a lot of gay men with AIDS were being evicted during the first dot-com boom, and that's how I got started in my housing activism.
My name is Andy Blue. I'm a Troops Biggest fan. And that's where I hang out. That is true. But I'm also here because I'm working really hard on this, the Plaza 16 Coalición, or 16 Coalition, and we've come together to fight a huge monster emission, a huge market for development that's going to be closed for 16 emission, and be a dagger in the heart of a beautiful community. So it's beautiful. So I'm actually going to kick off the conversation in a little bit. And I thought to begin, we could talk about the state of the city, the state of San Francisco. Tommy actually wrote an op-ed at San Francisco, published a big article this week, and trying to have hope, and kind of lays out where we are in the displacement crisis, the eviction crisis, and Erin, with the Anti-Eviction Mapping Project, has been documenting, analyzing the crisis, and knows it like the back of your hand. And, of course, our other folks are facing evictions themselves. So it seems like each of us has a perspective on the state of San Francisco, and and then hopefully we can kind of look at trying to have hope and why we can still have hope or facing hope. Anyone start?
The state of San Francisco. It's a sad state. And it's also a hopeful state because here we all are. It's funny, I got involved with what's going on here when a lot of my friends and community members were losing their homes, and I was spending more time helping people pack up their belongings and move them often across the day than I was at anything else. But even though I've lost a lot of people, I feel like I've also gained a lot of comrades and support. So there's some hope. We are building a movement. But the sad state is that the eviction epidemic is skyrocketing. You all know that Ellis Act evictions are up about 175% over the last 12 months, and all no-fault evictions are up at least 115%. disproportionately these no-fault evictions, when people are evicted for no fault of their own, most of these evictions are targeting people who are already subjugated in our capitalist political economy. People over the age of 62, people with disabilities are being targeted the most. Of course, people of color, immigrant communities, are also being targeted. We were just at a protest earlier today. An 80-year-old man named Diego De Leo, who's from Italy, is being LSAC evicted by a guy who owns at least 16 other buildings in the North Beach area. And while we were protesting, some people came out of a bar that this guy owns and started yelling USA, USA, which I've never encountered before, but it's really anti-immigrant and ageist and classist, etc. And that's kind of what we're dealing with on these microcosmic levels. And then we can look at these maps and just see that the entire city is being kind of clear-cut, right, of everybody who I think is here for good reasons, exciting reasons, political reasons. And it seems like the city that's been long hospitable towards difference is now really only being hospitable towards people who want to make money and profit off of other people's dispossessions. And that's why we're fighting. And that's my truncated analysis. Leave it at that.
As someone who's facing LSAC eviction, what's
my position.
what's your position? What are you experiencing, and what do you see as the state of the city displacement you're facing potentially?
Just to give you a little background on who I am.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a native San Francisco, born, raised, and living in San Francisco, and plan to be recycled in San Francisco. I'm also a creative movement artist, instructing social ballroom and line dance, as well as special ed, paraprofessional in San Francisco Unified School District, facilitating drum dance, sing-along circles with children and staff who work within special needs in the school district. And again, as I mentioned to you, I got my notice for eviction back on December 13th last year. 120 days, which would have been April 13th. And I started packing. As soon as I got the notice, I tell my neighbor down below, I said, Benito, what are you doing? He says, get out 30 days, And so I said, Benito, put your stuff back in there. I said, okay. I said, what? He says, I work for the city, my neighbor down below. I work for the city. And we're paying in rent control here. I've been there since 1977 in the Bosch Triangle, the Bosch between Valencia and Carrera. I've been there since 1977. 37 years. So I'm the oldest one net 4-unit apartment dwelling under rent control. And my paycheck, a real job, other than being a starving artist from volunteering in the 60s, from the 70s to 99, I got this job at the San Francisco University. I finally got a real job to really keep a roof over my head rather than hustling for dance students and come to drumming gigs. And I'm thinking, let's settle down here. Nice location right in the center of San Francisco. To be able to go from, I don't have a car, so transportation is perfect right here. Mission Street right down the block, Market Square out the block, Fire Station right down the street. And then I get this job, and it's like, wow, everything is fine. It's fine. I got a lot invested in this 151 DuBose. A lot invested in terms of my history there and what I experienced in that neighborhood where I was in the beginning. It's a fast-moving street. It's the Bosch Triangle that goes onto the South Venice on-ramp. So it's a fast-moving street, but there's still a little mini community of people that I knew, families, children that I worked with back in the 70s that grew up. They had their own families. neighbor next door who I work with, Experience Unlimited. Watch out for each other. You understand what I'm saying? We watch out for one another. When some street kids, street thugs, for example, block the street sidewalk, and I'm just going off from work. One of the guys from the crew, he said, he looked at me, Benito? Yeah. And he says, that's my teacher, let him go. It's that kind of thing. My neighbor next door, when I first got evicted back in '98, almost got evicted in '98 because of a quote-unquote small landlord, right? I just asked a question, because I held back from '77 to '98. These peelings that came off the ceiling, right over my stove, and then right in the bathroom. I was wondering why when I took a shower that I couldn't breathe. Couldn't see how to scrub and still couldn't find out that it was lead-based poison. Since I've been working with children, I have an obligation to practice what I preach. My first rule of when I work with children is safety first, fun later. Second one was teamwork, working together. The third one was when in doubt, check out. So I figured if I'm going to be preaching this safety first for the kids, I better practice what I preach. And so I made a call to the landlord at that time. I said, "Could you do me a favor and check out this?" Next thing I know, the same thing like what happened back then. I get this notice: get out. Harass. Get out. You're not out yet. Get out. And so I've been through this before, and I held ground because my neighbor next door said, "Benito, what are you doing?" Because I started doing the same things. Put it back in. Because once you're out, that's it. You can just hike it up and pretend like you weren't there. So we fought it. He was a construction worker. He built houses. He was a realtor and an landlord. And so we fought a small landlord. And so I'm banking on. I am banking on with the help of Aaron McGilroy and the Eviction Free San Francisco, the Housing Rights Committee. We've been going to all of these meetings and rallies of the different coalitions. They got the tenants rights union. They got the tenants together. We got seniors and disabled, which I represent. And so, going to these rallies, going to these meetings, going to these protests, and helping everyone else out. In turn, they helped me out, which I really appreciated. My speculator, his name is Pineapple Boy LLC. You know that? He says, "Wow, this guy's from Hawaii, all over from Hawaii, here. How's he going to do that?" Only to find out that his name is not Pineapple Boy LLC. His name is Michael Harrison. Michael Harrison. That's Hawaii, Michael Harrison. And then we find out that his real estate offices right around the corner of the Tenants Rights Union on 21st and Mission. So as I helped everyone else out with mine, so I was the drummer, we got the chant, we got this call and response going. As I'm helping everyone else out, they helped me out back in April 2nd. And we started off on the BART station on 24th, got a rally together. It's we've done before for the anti-Google bus and other persons that were being evicted. So this time I was really touched that they were backing me up this time, so I got the drum for myself. But we went over there and we made our statement, and what I really appreciate about putting a face behind the statistic. Use your imagination. Little dots over here, all these little dots in San Francisco. represent all the people that have been evicted. Right in the middle here. Anyway, rather than being indifferent to a person, is to put a face behind those dots, and then also to put a spotlight on the people that's doing this. I mean, who is this Pineapple Boy LLC? All I see is a picture of a pineapple. You find out that it's Michael Harrison. Thank you. In Addiction Free San Francisco. And to put that face, and then to confront them. Okay, let's talk face to face as a person here. Not all this, I'll talk to you, go ahead. Yeah, you're looking good there. Okay, what else? You know what I'm saying? This is what we have. This is what we're dealing with. So I'm talking. This is what happened in one of these protests. It says, "Oh, what are you guys protesting? Well, we're doing the Santiago's. Okay. Let me see. Okay. Why are you doing this? I'm talking to me. That one over there. The one. There was a gathering in the San Francisco Symphony Hall, Davis Symphony Hall. And a couple of guys, after everyone left, we did all this drama chant and drumming and play acting and role playing. And then all of a sudden, two guys from the crew, from the Google, started coming, started asking questions. I didn't know until they told me. But anyway, make a long story short, going to these rallies, going to these meetings, going to these protests, what it's done, it has, I felt, established, bittersweet, a community. Because when I first got my eviction notice, I thought it was a Lone Ranger. Oh man, the whole world on my back. I wanted to find out, to go to these meetings and these gatherings and these speaks, these forums, what have you, that other people have their stories. Just as mine, if not more so. To the point that people are dying. Earlier this year, an elderly lady got homeless. Within a week, she died. And it was like 20 or 30 years ago, the same thing happened with that lady. That's documented. So it's more than just Benito Santiago, especially it's people. It's happening a one-on-one, and okay, you show me, I'll show you my cards, you show me your cards. Let's see how we're gonna play this hand. How we can play this hand. I'm gonna leave with that, and that's what I'm gonna say. Thank you for your support.
So tell us what you're all facing at 1049 Market Street.
Yeah, sure. I'm from San Diego originally, but I moved here in the early 80s. And I had always dreamed of living here. My father lived here, and I used to come and visit, when I was young. This was my life dream to move here, and I finally got here in the early 80s. And spent a lot of time working at Rainbow Grocery, and I've been there a long time. So I moved into my neighborhood where I live now at 1049 Market, and that's between 6th and 7th. I moved in there 10 years ago, and I remember when I wanted to move there, I had friends and acquaintances who were like, you want to move down there? It's practically Timberline. It is a Timberline. And it turned out it was my most favorite neighborhood I've ever lived in San Francisco, and I've lived in, the Mission, I've lived in Noe Valley before, and around, mostly around these areas, and it's just in my favorite place. There's a real community there. There's mixed race neighborhood. It's very interesting. Everything's next door down there. Just about everything I want to do. All the demonstrations are usually around there between Civic Center and Powell. So I got a little place. It's a little, they call it a loft, but it's in a building. The building has 80 units in it, and a number of the units had more than one people in them per unit. So that's quite a lot of people there. So I, moved in there. It's got a bathroom down the hall and showered in the hall. Just a neat little place so I could try to do my starving artist thing. And I finally wrote a bunch of songs and just finished producing my first CD, self-producing it, and got an eviction notice last September of 2014. It was really a fake eviction notice, but I didn't know at the time. I was really scared about it, and it was kind of, don't worry, you know, we're going to give you plenty of time kind of letter. So luckily I knew about Tommy, I would call him Mecca's group, San Francisco Housing Rights Committee on 15th and Van Ness. And I went down there, South Van Ness, and I went down there right away, and I think that's really the thing to do. I've met people that they think they might have trouble with eviction, and I think they wait too long to people I know. I keep advising them, as soon as you get nervous, go right away and find out what your rights are, because we do still have a lot of rights. So Tommy's group, and Tommy specifically, was instrumental in helping me, and at the same time, one of my building mates had gone down there. He was an acquaintance of mine. We'd gone down there just about the same time, and so Tommy just worked with us, and Ben and I were able to, with the help of this group, were able to organize the building and get people on the same page and have these large meetings down the block. The luggage store offered their space, and we'd have some of the first meetings with 80 people, and then 50 people, and 30 and 30. And the owner of our building at 1049, actually the owners, they actually own several buildings on that block. 1067 Market, which is also a rental building, and also 1005, plus some attached storefronts. So, you know, they're combined, there's some money there, really. And basically, it's been very interesting. You know, when that kind of thing happens, you know, suddenly you're talking to your neighbors, people you've seen in the building forever, and guys never talked, and suddenly we were talking to each other, setting up internet communications, and a lot of people in the building, luckily, were very resourceful. They go down to DBI, Department of Building Inspections, go down there and down there and down there, until we finally got a hold of the actual demolition permit that our landlord signed, and it said right on there he was supposed to notify us right away when he filed the demolition permit, and he waited months and months and months. So it's the same story I hear from a lot of people, of landlords that are very cutthroat, very break the law to get you out, lie, scare, whatever they can do to get us out. And there's been problems that we've had to address, but so far they're still not accepting our rent. They refuse to accept the rent, and we've had to pay our rent to, right now the Tenderloin Housing Clinic is holding it for us, and giving some of us in the building legal representation. Other people have other legal representation. So it's been a big fight, and luckily people in my building have been very resourceful. We've been going, some of us, to demonstrations, we've been going to City Hall, Twitter demos, and you know, and speaking out. We got tons of press from the very beginning. One of the people in our building knew an Examiner reporter, and he came and interviewed us really early in the game, and after that, the media just kept rolling in. They just kept calling, mostly through his group, and then they would want to interview us in our building. And some people don't want to talk to the press for various reasons, and some of us did. And they just come right into our rooms, every local press that you can name in San Francisco, and then national press, and even some international press. We got on French TV, and about 3 French stations interviewed us, and some people from London, and the Wall Street Journal called me a second time, but they're still working on something. But so we got a lot of press and that helped, but mainly, like, Tommy's helped me to realize what's kept us there so far while we're still there is because our tenants fought back. Because a little less than half of the building has stayed all this time and are refusing to move. We have nowhere to go. We can't really go anywhere. Can't afford to go anywhere. Not only in San Francisco, but in the whole Bay Area. And that's the key: is if you fight back and do everything you can, you will definitely always win something. So they tried to get us out on a demolition eviction permit because we fought back. Jane Kim, our supervisor, and the mayor had to start helping us because we're considered one of the biggest cases since the I Hotel, because there's 3 units of us, and it started with ours, and there's so many people involved. So that's just an overview quickly, and we're still fighting it out right now. Now it's the lawyers are getting involved. It's reached that phase. Different phases we go.
I have to say, it's an amazing story, and people don't, San Francisco don't realize it is probably the biggest tenant victory ever in the history of the city, because they're still there. And I have every confidence. when I first got involved with the case, and I called a couple lawyers, tenant lawyers, and they said to me, "You're crazy for taking this on. You can't win this. The best that you can do is get them more money and more time to leave." And I said, "You're wrong. We're going to beat this." Because I knew 83 units. I mean, this is the biggest mass eviction since the I Hotel. And I thought to myself, this is not going to happen. This can't happen. And the fact that they're 2 blocks from Twitter said to me, this is the direct impact that the Twitter tax break is having. And this is coming less than a year after that tax break. And this is what we all had predicted when we went to City Hall to oppose the tax break. We had all said it's going to cause evictions in the Tenderloin area. And everybody called us crazy. The mayor's office thought we were nuts and just a bunch of radical commie, pico, whatever. And but the tenants were amazing. The fact that the tenants stuck together and fought made all the difference in the world. It really did. But the first thing I did was I called the mayor's office and I said to the mayor's aide, "Okay, so this is what happens when you give tax breaks to Twitter. There's no coincidence. These folks are 2 blocks from Twitter. The mayor has to fix this because we're going to the press." "Oh, no, you're not." "Yeah, yes, we are. We're going to the press." "No, don't talk to the press yet. Let us know. We've already talked to the press. The Examiner's coming out with a story tomorrow." And
It was front page, front page. My picture, huge,
yeah.
you know, Van's picture on
And
the,
the line that I fed the reporter was on the front page. It was, "Largest mass eviction since the I Hotel." It's just the line I had fed the reporter. And the day it appears the next morning, that afternoon, I get a call from the mayor's office saying they had found a solution. And that these tenants were not going to get evicted. So the power of organizing, the power of using the media, the power of using whatever you have to use, in this case, the Twitter tax break. You know, I'm not, any means necessary is my attitude. Whatever it takes to keep people from being evicted, I will do. I'm shameless. You know. In terms of the state of the city, real quickly, I guess I'm the most cynical person here. Despite this great victory, yeah, I wrote the piece in The Guardian trying to have hope because sometimes I struggle with that, you know, this feeling of hopelessness. I was involved in fighting in the first .com boom. This is so much far worse. This is, I mean, that was nothing. That was a rehearsal for something. This is the real deal. And they are out for blood. They are out to suck out every dime they can suck out of the city, and they're doing it. So I would say, to add to what Erin was saying, that, you know, not only are the evictions at epidemic proportions, as you can see, the rents are totally out of control. $8,000 units above the Whole Foods at Sanchez and Market in my neighborhood. I live in the Castro. $10,000 units in the Mission. There's an apartment across the street from me, same size, two-unit apartment that goes for $4,200. I mean, the rents are so out of control. The reality is that in any sane society, this would be illegal. It would be criminal to charge these rents in any sane society. So I am convinced that we do not live in a sane society. We don't. There's no way. Just the rents alone, not to mention evictions, are evidence that we live in an absolutely criminal society that deserves to be taken before a world court and tried. All of the leaders of this city deserve to go on trial for criminal acts. And I say that without exaggeration. There's also a serious lack of affordable housing. People are getting evicted and they have nowhere to go. They have nowhere to rent because the city has fucked up for the last 20 years and has not been building affordable housing. Okay? I'm just going to say it out clear because I don't beat around the bush. The city has not been building affordable housing. The sham of a BMR program that was started 10 years ago or so, at the very end of Willie Brown's the below market rental units. So when developers develop these market rate complexes, they have to make so many units quote unquote affordable. And the BMR below market rentals were supposed to be for teachers and police officers and firefighters, you know, and the so-called middle class or lower middle class or whatever they thought they were at the time. So they were supposed to be affordable to them. However, what's happened is the developers have gotten greedier. The city has allowed them to get greedier. So now these are priced out of the range of those folks, and they're priced more in the range of people who are making, you know, $80,000, $100,000 a year. And this is was not the intention of that program. So the city is screwed up every which way. So there's no affordable housing. Everything we're building is market rate, and it's going up. You all know, the cranes were everywhere. Everything we're building is beyond all of us and a lot of other people. The fact is, City Hall, for all of its talk, is doing shit. All of the legislation they're passing is not enough. It's too little, too late. I'm sorry, as much as I love some of the people that are on the Board of Supervisors, it is not enough. We need radical action. The Ellis reform, as you might know, in the state failed, so we're back at square one on that. And we can blame a lot of people. I blame the Democratic Party. It's supposed to be our friend and ally. Once again, they've proven they're not. I'm a Green. I'm a registered Green, so I have nothing to do with those folks. But so they fucked up too. They fucked up big time. And the final thing I'll say is, if we want to really tackle this problem, we have to tackle the big C word that everybody's afraid to talk about: capitalism. Because the root cause of our housing crisis, and every housing crisis in this country, is the fact that housing is a commodity. What insanity! How do you have a society that not only has healthcare as a commodity and having hospitals and pharmaceutical companies making huge profits off of all of our backs, but you also have housing as a commodity? It's insanity. Okay, fine, you have a TV as a commodity, or you have, some luxury DVD player that, does everything but burp the baby. Fine, I get that. But housing? How do you have that as a commodity and expect that you're not going to have what we have in San Francisco, where these speculators and investors from all over the world are going to come here when there's a hot real estate market and just buy up buildings to flip them and make lots of money and not care that human beings are being evicted and that a lot of human beings are becoming homeless. So I say to City Hall, and I've said it to the politicians, if they really want to solve it, they got to figure a way to do something about capitalism. I know we're not going to get rid of capitalism tomorrow. I'm not naive. I'm not some wild-eyed radical. I was wild-eyed radical when I was 21, but I'm far past 21. So I know capitalism is here to stay. But we can do things to rein it in. And that's what the people that we elect, those fools that we elect, they have to figure out how to rein in this beast. Because if they don't, they're not going to get reelected, because the people who are going to be replacing all of us when we get kicked out are not going to elect those fools. So, down with capitalism.
So you titled your article "Trying to Have Hope," and of course quoted Harvey Milk's famous line, "You gotta keep hope." And you leave it a little bit, I really want to have hope. That's how you end the article. But I did hear some glimmers of hope down here. I heard Benito, mention the community that he's finding through his fight and the organizations that he's come to know and work with, and the folks that he's met, and feeling some empowerment there. And I have the distinct honor and pleasure of being at, I think, the initial meeting at 1049 Market, and seeing these folks that many of them probably never never been an activist of any kind, maybe never faced an eviction fight, but that was a magical scene. You could see immediately that this was that people were ready to fight. Many of the people were absolutely committed and going to be there to the end. They were going to work together, and clearly, wow, it came together and something amazing happened. A fight that was supposedly impossible to win wasn't even worth taking on. You're in your home today, and we're keeping our fingers crossed. Does anyone else want to add anything? Any other glimmers of hope they've seen, or are we at a turning point? Have we, I think, I know maybe 18 months ago, over a year ago, a year and a half ago, I think there was this sense that for a lot of folks that, wow, it's just, San Francisco's over. Like, nothing's happening. Everyone felt hopeless. Everyone felt, of course, tireless activists like Tommy weren't missing a beat. But there was a sense that I think a lot of people felt they were powerless. But then something changed, a little over a year ago, Mission Free San Francisco emerged. Things started popping up. Google bus protests, things really started to catch fire. So, you know, have we reached a turning point? Some kind of momentum shift? I don't know. But that's for everybody who wants to take it. If there's any other
Well, you know,
signs of
there are other
hopeful-
cities that are going through similar thing, maybe not all tech. I know a guy where I work is from Germany, and he said Berlin is having the same problem with the techs coming in. And people that lived there, some of them for hundreds of years, their family. And they're being pushed out, and New York has been hit, and Chicago's been hit. And this activist friend of mine told me a lot of times people, they want us to think, oh, this is just a local problem. We're just having this problem in the Bay Area. But in London and everywhere, so I think it's kind of helping, maybe there will be, there is an emerging maybe housing, you know, international movement, because so many people are being displaced, and the LSAC's affecting Los Angeles. I'm reading recently, people are getting squeezed out of there, and you know, it's statewide, and so this is really a big deal.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, income inequality is growing more rapidly in San Francisco now than any other city in the U.S. This is a visualization we just did showing that. But of course, income inequality is growing in most major cities. The gap between the rich and the poor is widening exponentially. And in San Francisco, that's happening not so much because the poor are getting poorer, even though they are, but it's the rich are getting disproportionately richer. Which doesn't answer your question about hope. But what I was going to say about hope is, I think a couple things that have given me hope lately have happened in the context of protesting. Yesterday we protested the Google Developer Conference, and what was really cool was, well, a few things were really cool. One, we dressed like Star Wars characters, and that was fun. But two, we as housing rights activists were in alliance with a bunch of labor folks. So it was Eviction Free SF, it was SEIU, USWW representing the security workers who were being screwed over by these big tech companies. It was SEIU 1021 who's been also fighting the impact that the private tech buses are having on our city, particularly around the shuttle stops themselves, where we've seen evictions actually go up 69%. 69% of the evictions that happened over the last 3 years happened within 4 blocks of these private tech bus stops, which is huge. But labor is really getting involved, and I think relationships between labor and housing don't always cement, but it really is happening now. We joined up with them also when we went down to Google's headquarters in Mountain View a couple months ago with some folks from DC and some folks from Oklahoma. A lot of people really concerned about the variegated impacts that some of these big tech corporations are having, whether it's Google funding ALEC, or being the #1 corporate lobbyist in DC right now. It's doing, it's creating military technologies. It's making backroom deals with the NSA. It's responsible for mass surveillance. But it's kind of, for me, an exciting turning point to think about how we can kind of make linkages between some of these movements from the housing rights arena to labor to, people fighting for net neutrality. So I'll just say
And
that.
people of color communities are coming together. There's been some great conferences around the housing thing where there are Chinese interpreters, a lot of Asian people are there, Latin interpreters, and Spanish interpreters, and to see the sectors coming together too. You're right. There's a lot of them that reminds me more of the '60s where we're all helping each other out.
Also, them going to all of these Sacramento lobbying for this Mark Leno's State Bill 1439, and in the beginning it's like borderline. We're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. And we made it. Second time, we just came in there like blockbusters. First we were outnumbered, like maybe sprinkling of 20, 30 members of our coalition coming up in the bus, whereas there was a whole room full of speculators. We were just really outnumbered. So what happened was we got from Dean Preston of Tenants Together, said, Benito, all you guys, no matter what they do to harass you, just don't feed into it. Just maintain your composure, maintain your integrity. And we did that, and they started lambasting people up on the panel there. Some of the people said, you guys aren't helping yourself. So they were, even though we were outnumbered, by the fact that we maintained our cool, our composure, we came out on top, and we won that. First they were against us, so we were waiting and waiting and waiting. Then finally we found out that 2 people were missing. They came in and says, yes, you recall, remember that one? And then also, in that same meeting, that first meeting, part of the speculators' witnesses was a quote-unquote singing this poor, violent song. Saying, oh, poor me. He dramatically brings his father up on a wheelchair. Okay? Oh, poor me. My elderly father, my senior father, wants to move into my building, but these people won't go out. Poor me. Where am I going to put my father? And we find out that he's not a poor, small landlord. He's a speculator who's a multimillionaire who has 3 properties. And what he doesn't say that, yet everyone kowtows to that. And then in the last meeting, 4th meeting that we went up there, we go into this assembly room, and each one of us do our spiel for Ellis Act Reform. And then they come up with their witnesses, and I'm listening to this. And I hear this person talk. It sounds just like that person in the beginning. Guess what? It was the same person. It's the same person I was talking about. Yes, he's doing it again. And they're gobbling it up. They gobble it up to the point that the Democratic from, who was that, just from Orange County? I'll just go with the Republicans. What they were saying is like, the other Democrat from San Diego said, well, I think this Ellis Act is really doing harm to the small landlords. And what they're not saying, what I found out, that doesn't have anything to do with the small landlords. It's dealing with the speculators that's going in there and buying up, kicking out seniors, kicking out disabled, kicking out teachers, kicking out families that's been there for longest, just to flip it. And they're supposed to be getting out of the rental business. Yet they're flipping it. Like my position right now. Got a 1-bedroom apartment over here in the Bosch Triangle. Been there since 1977. Started out paying something like $245 a month for 1 bed. Okay? Now I'm paying something like $575. And when my neighbor, who just turned his garage into an in-law, check, because I was helping him move out, in his garage, in his in-law, my neighbor down below said, Benito, guess what? What he sold it to. And guess what they're selling that, what they're pricing that in-law? $4,000 for a garage, ladies and gentlemen. $4,000. And that's the going rate. That's a garage. That's a garage. And check this out. He said, Benito, we found out that this Pineapple Boy wants to turn our 1-bedroom apartment into a 2-bedroom apartment. Because one of our rooms doesn't have a closet. They're going to put a closet in the other room, in each one of our 4 units. Instead of charging $4,000 a month, they're going to charge $8,000 to $10,000. We found out, right? We got teachers from Phyllis L. Byrne High School, where I'm working currently right now. They are moving out of San Francisco because they cannot afford to live in San Francisco. They love their jobs. They're in the United Educators of San Francisco Bulletin. And I was in there also. But they're in there. 2 people that love to do their jobs, and the students love to do their jobs, and they have to leave because they can't afford it. Very heartening. But do these people hear that? No, they hear this poor, quote-unquote, small landlord wants to move his father into this space, and these people are in the way. And this lady from San Diego says, yes, this Ellis Act is really harming the small landlords. No, it's not. It doesn't affect them, is what I understand, from our words, on our side. Again, the point is, what the Ellis Act, from my understanding, is for landlords, landladies, to get out of the rental business. Not for speculators to come in there and say, okay, get out you senior, get out your disabled, get out your teachers, get out your students, get out your families. So I can flip it for 5 times, 10 times the amount. That's not right. Go ahead.
So I think, one of the things that inspires me is that, I don't know how many people know, during the 30s, the Communist Party, especially in New York, used to surround buildings when the marshals were coming to evict people who were losing their homes during the Depression, and they would actually surround the building. They wouldn't let them in to remove the people's furniture. And they successfully stopped evictions, especially in New York. So I think that's what it's going to take, honestly. I think it's going to take a movement, a national movement like that right now. And this being Pride weekend, I have this fantasy that what's going to happen is some 98-year-old woman like Mary Phillips in the DuBois area who's being evicted by an Ellis, that she's going to lose her case finally, and that the morning's going to come and the sheriff's going to come to take her out, and that we're all going to surround the building, and that something's going to happen. Maybe the sheriffs come and some people push them or something, and a riot happens, and the next thing you know, it's all over the news, and hundreds of people leave their jobs and come to, but again, this is a fantasy. They leave their jobs and they all start surrounding the building, and that sparks a movement like we've never had before. Just like the gay movement got sparked by a riot in the car. That's what we need, folks. I'm sorry. That's what we need to change things in this country and in this city. Because honestly, the politicians are never going to do enough until something like that happens where they're really put on the spot.
Just to add to that, I think one of the things we're also fighting right now is the impact, of course. So the tech boom 2.0 is correlative to this increased eviction epidemic, but we're also fighting this kind of other effect of the tech boom where we think we can do all of our activism organizing online. We really need bodies in real space in real time to actually riot when the time comes, but also to do an eviction blockade. Mary is being evicted right now. She's 98 years old. She's being evicted by a guy who owns at least 385 other units in the city right now. David Mccloskey, CEO of Urban Green. His company is a subsidiary of a company called Cornerstone Holding, based out of Colorado. That company, owned by his father, has been reprimanded by the Sierra Club and Earth Justice for doing shady stuff all over the country. So it's like these big corporations that, targeting 98-year-old women.
She's a
But
retired
it's Wall Street,
teacher.
right? It's the Wall Street, the Dirty Dozen, aren't they, Blackstone, and kind of Wall Street related?
They donated to Mitt Romney, they donated to Sarah Palin. They're really, and then they're pretending to be environmentally friendly in San Francisco. And the same thing, I know Pineapple Boy LLC, Michael Harrison, he's actually the co-founder of Vanguard Property. They're the ones that are raising the rents in SF. And in addition, they're the #1 reason why there are units that are going for $10,500. So these big corporations, the only way we're going to fight them is not online, but actually with our bodies. Yeah.
Sure, we should to answer this.
Oh, for the hopeful stuff?
Yeah. Just give me a chance.
Well, I think we covered it pretty well with the different sectors coming together to fight against the people staying more and more and not leaving their units and stuff. For the hopeful stuff, it's kind of, we just take it one day at a time. When you're facing an eviction, you're just kind of taking things one day at a time. So every day is a victory. Every day you're still there. It's hard to say. Like on my block, sometimes it seems pretty devastating. I'm sure everyone knows of the high-rises that are being planned. The Honda place on Van Essen Market, a condo there that used to be the Fillmore West. But on my block, it's really the whole thing is changing. Flax, of course, Flax is going, and Kaplan, they both started in 1938. Condos are going up there, and Kaplan's is on my block. But on my block, of course, the Market Street Cinema, that's gone already. They have a high-rise plan there. For 7th and Market, a high-rise there. Across the street, the Renmar Hotel, they're tearing that down. High-rise there. And then directly across the street from my place where the billiards place is, they're already tearing that down. Shorenstein owns that. He's also running Twitter, they're building. And they're building high-rise condo, shopping center combinations right there. When 5th and Market is a block away, and there's another big shopping center going on between there anyway. So, I mean, this kind of David versus Goliath thing does seem really discouraging, you know, but you definitely, you know, it's either that or be homeless. And lately the mayor said he's not doing anything about homelessness. I think we've all seen more and more, even in the last month, homeless people all over the street. I'm sure a number of them have been evicted. And when I look at that, what choice do I have but to fight? You know, so that's what, you know, we're going to do. And I'm really happy that people in my building have stayed and they're brave, because it's true, not many of them were activists before. And so people can really turn around when they need to, you know, and that's the hope we have, is the human perseverance and ingenuity.
So, one other thing that I want to kind of end with, and I think it relates to something that Aaron mentioned, and relates to the room that I read here. We talked about we need bodies on the street, we can't just be working our activism. And I absolutely agree with that. And we're here in the Mime Troop, Howard Halls, this extraordinary institution that has an incredible history, bringing truth, speaking truth to power, and inspiring us through art and entertainment and song and dance. And so I think it's appropriate that I didn't know you were a musician as well. Of course, Benito's already got his drum going there and creating rhythm for us. And Tommy has been singing songs of truth and talking truth to power through his music for many years. And we've seen the super creative Google protests. So, you know, this beautiful meshing of art and activism, and you know, how is it successful? How can we do more of that? And what other, you know, maybe perhaps bridges haven't we made? You know, just I'll plug our effort here for just a second, because we did it it's exactly what Aaron said. We did an event in the plaza a couple of weekends ago, and we called it the Plaza 16 Festival. And we just made a real DIY kind of thing. We had a little stage there, and we had musicians lined up all day, and we had arts activities. We really just told folks, bring something, doesn't matter what it is, whatever you want to do. So we had silk screening out there, we had people doing live art, we had kids doing chalk stuff on the ground, we had arts and crafts projects. All kinds of different organizations and groups came out and participated. And I mean, we had countless conversations, really positive conversations with folks in the neighborhood because of this. And you know, sometimes you have to, you've got to have loud protests and you've got to hear demands, and other times you need to create these spaces where those kind of interactions can happen with folks by chance, walking through the neighborhood. And so, you know, that approach to creating, you know, bringing more people into our movement and using our creativity and getting our artists to collaborate and bringing folks in and having them involved and bring those skills, anything that anybody wants to contribute to that. So we have discussion.
Well, you know, the people have a lot of power. There's one interesting thing that happened really early in the game when we were fighting this, and we were talking to Tommy, and he says, look, I'm going to send you down to the Tenderloin Housing Clinic. You can have a meeting with a lawyer. You know, they're going to try to help you. And Ben and I went down there thinking we were going to just talk to a lawyer, and guess who was there? A representative from the mayor's office, the housing guy, the head of the Department of Building Inspectors, 2 people from Jane Kim's office, and all these people were there, and Ben and I were just like starting this starting the fight. And I felt that day that they were trying to discourage us from fighting, and they kept thinking, well, what can we do for your case? And they kept saying, well, no, that won't work, and we can try this. And I found out, you know, it doesn't even matter what laws it is, it's who you know, and that's where the people power comes from, because we got the city from like, oh, we just can't help you, to just turning around, and we fought back. and helping us and keeping us there and freezing the demolition eviction of the landlords so they could not evict us. Those same people, the mayor's office, Jane Kim's office, all of a sudden they could help us. So that's where the people power comes in, and don't be afraid of the laws or however big it looks. When the people start fighting back, the people in City Hall start looking really small all of a sudden. And it's been hard dealing with people that created this problem, because the mayor and Jane Kim wanted Twitter in, and now I have depending on them to help me put them in and to keep us in. And so there's just a real slimy game with politics. But it's all about people power, and that's what we've got in San Francisco. And like you mentioned about the Google thing, I think about it so much. The Snowden thing could have broken a long time ago with, was it Mark Klein and AT&T discovered here in San Francisco that they were doing an NSA type of thing and taking people's phone calls. He was afraid to speak up in early 2000s. But that whole thing we could have started right here, the Edward Snowden thing that finally happened later. And it's really important that these Google people are working in these companies, working so close with the NSA, and then trying to pretend like they haven't been. But the main thing is that these companies like Facebook and all, they want all our information. They pay attention to everything we're doing, and it's so close to what the NSA's been doing. Only Google's doing it for their own business, and the NSA turns around and is doing it for other business people. But, you know, so the big fight is here, not only for housing, but also for our internet rights and things like that.
I think one of the things that we shouldn't underestimate is the power of music and art in our struggles. I come from an era, I'm a child of the 60s, I'm going to be 63 next month, so I'm an old guy, was around back then, and I got involved with the SDS and gay liberation early on, but everything we did, we had music. There was always somebody with a guitar up there singing a protest song. But culturally, you know, there was Bob Dylan, there was Pete Seeger, there was Peter, Paul, and Mary, and all these other people who were creating the anthems that we sang at our rallies, and that really inspired us. But it created a change in the culture, because I think a lot of what we did politically we didn't win a lot of our struggles, our anti-capitalist struggles. We didn't win those. We didn't win the struggles to redistribute the wealth or any of that stuff. But we did change things in a cultural way. I mean, I think the fact that we have gay marriage now, and the fact that transgender people are much more recognized than they were back then, certainly, is because we made a cultural change. We were doing things culturally, theatrically, through music and film that had a more permanent effect on change than a lot of the demonstrations and things we were doing. And that's why I always saw art as very, very, very powerful. In the 80s, I was involved in a theater troupe that was very, very popular. We toured along the East Coast. We got huge grants, and we were doing very political theater, sort of like the Mime Troupe. We were called Avalanche, and we were all about trying to really rouse people up politically. We would go to college campuses, and we would get such negative reaction from the administrations. Because the administration, they thought we were just this cute little multiracial queer theater troupe, and we'd go there and we'd do things like desecrate American flags, and we were out to just, a lot of times just shock people, just get them to become non-complacent about things and to realize this is just a piece of cloth, folks, and this piece of cloth is responsible for a lot of horrors throughout the world, you know, and we would hammer that home, but we would do things in a very shocking way sometimes. And so we would go in there, and once some administrators would be sitting in, would be watching us, and they would freak big time afterwards. But we had already been there, we'd already gotten our message and everything. So I say, bring the art on, bring the theater on. We need the mime troupe, we need the old guy with the folk guitar singing radical songs.
Well, even the Google Bus people, you have the dancers out there on the Google Bus thing. That was beautiful.
We need it all. We need the Star Wars characters at the Google conference. It all helps culturally to make a sea change within the culture.
I asked, I think, Anne Marie, if you knew Anna Halpern. Has anyone heard of Anna Halpern? San Francisco Dancers Workshop. I was with her in the 70s, just after the Flower Children, 71, 76. And she is one person that used, and she continues to do so, using the arts to bring people together, to bring different factions together. She was the one back in the 60s when some of you might be a little young for this. But in Los Angeles, there was a big riot. It's called the Watts Riot. You heard it in history, where the blacks just really got frustrated and just rampaged Watts. Anna Helpman had her white Anglo-Saxon modern dance group over here on 321 Divisadero, San Francisco Dancers Workshop. She took her white Anglo-Saxon ladies, went straight into the heart of the Watts right after the riot, and recruited from the Watts, from the Watts community, the blacks there, and brought them together via dance and music and drama. And instead of sugarcoating, or you shouldn't do this kind of thing, she allowed them to express themselves and use that energy of expression in the art form in a constructive, creative environment, and yet allow them to release that. And from my experience of being with Anna Helpman, there's a saying that comes to mind in terms of energy. Energy contained is implied. Energy released is expressed. And that was her objective. And by using the arts, she was able to take ex-cons, gang people from Watts, and this nice of the dancers, and bring them together and allow them to get out the demons from within on both sides, to a point that it had, at a certain point, when you release it all, eventually it has to come down back to Mother Earth. And like from the ashes, with the phoenix bird just rising, that's what came up. And you can look this up in the San Francisco Dance Workshop or Tamalpa Institute now, and it's documented, Ceremony of Us. It was documented in film, and I think it's documented, and you'll see the trials and tribulations that went through the whole gamut of life in terms of sexuality and blacks and whites, and just that tension that's there, and then the transformation that occurs after all the negativity is released. And so I feel, and I feel wholeheartedly, and I stake my life to this, because it was the arts that helped save me in my bouts of death. 2 times. One, when as I mentioned to you, I was victimized right here in the Tenderloin where I was working, Renaissance School of Dance, the 285 Ellis. Victimized as a pedestrian. Victimized as a pedestrian walking across the street, and a car coming through, stopping in the middle of the rain, and then I thought allowed me to go across. Instead it put pedal to the metal. And I ended up flying 15 feet. I went back to the scene of the crime. But it was through the arts, ladies and gentlemen, it was through the arts, my training with Anna Helpman, of how this instrument works. Not just do this movement here and that, in the movement, but how this that we call our body, our internal instrument, how it moves through space in the most economical, efficient way. That along with the Tai Chi and the Qigong, and the Aikido, and the ballroom dance, where we got to know one's center here, and know the other person's center, and how to move in unison. And an image that came to mind when I was a kid was this, and that is, I said to myself, when I grow up, when I started getting, when it's okay to hold a girl's hand, and when it was okay to be cool to dance, back in the 60s. So when I grow up, I'd like to go to the United Nations. And before all these countries start coming together with this against this and that, and this and that, I would like to go to the United Nations and get them all out of these prisons of chairs, and move the tables aside, and these things that divide us. Have them all come into a circle. And this is what I experienced with Anna Halpern, how she gets people together, because I draw them with her. If you ever been to a Native American Indian powwow, it starts off with the beat. And that beat unifies people, because we all have it. We all have the breath. And combining the breath with the beat, we have the vocalness of positive expression when we release. And so I had in my mind's eye, to get all these heads of state around the world out of this little desk, into the dance floor, and get them on that beat. And off that beat, let them do what they want to do. Because we are individuals. Yes, we're all united. And after we get our expression, get all that negative energy out of our system, come to a final unity that pulse. Because I work with special ed students. And I do a dance drum circle with them. And they come in, I take them all on. The people that say, oh, Benito, he can't play an instrument. He can't move his hands and quadriplegic. Bring him. Benito, he can't be part of this. He doesn't have focus. Bring him. He's gonna bounce around. I can't get that rhythm. He's running around. I can't get that rhythm. He can't hear. He can feel. So all these heads of states, I had this man. Had just get in the groove. And once they're in a groove, they get all this negative energy out of the system. And they come back to this. And then out of that boom, come back to the heart, back to the spirit. That's my fantasy.
So I guess, yeah. From us, if anybody has anything to add, or ask
In its day.
That was a quite serious. I've never done that before. There's something about that that is too appropriate. I don't know. But, yeah, please.
I'm 72 and I'm being evicted. My landlord died. I'm probably going to before they'll get me out of there.
What kind of eviction? What are they doing?
I don't know. My landlord's dead. And his daughter owns the building. I don't know if they can do it. I'm a senior and I don't think they can do it. I don't know. I got to do it.
Have you received papers? Eviction papers?
No, my landlord just yelled at me one day and said, you're evicted. I said,
No.
I know.
Document that.
No.
No, he's dead. He's dead.
Right.
Oh,
I can't.
it's not right.
There is no eviction until there's paperwork, and even when there's paperwork, doesn't mean you're gonna get evicted. So,
I'm not worried about it.
Is it pre-79? Your building, like ours
No,
is
it's
pre-79.
on the map, it's the little, it's South Park. I live in South Park.
That's pre-77. Pre-79, right? South Park?
It depends. He's asking it if
well,
you
I would say if you receive any kind of written notice, oral
I'm
notice
okay.
don't count.
I'll just mention, I'm a senior.
But I just want to remind people to receive any kind of anything in writing. Anything oral doesn't mean a damn thing. They can say anything they want to you verbally. It doesn't mean anything. But anything in writing, I would say come to one of the 10 organizations and get some counseling. Definitely.
I lived in Cuba, and I met lots of people living in these huge mansions in Cuba, and I'd say, how much is your rent here? And they'd say, who pays the rent? And I'd say, they're just living in these huge buildings. Yeah, and nobody's paying rent.
Because Cuba has a set. In Cuba, you have a right to housing.
Yeah.
In America, you don't. You don't have a right to housing.
Right.
You have a right to own property if you can afford to buy it, but you don't have a right to housing in America.
Right.
The United States has refused to adopt the UN proposition that housing is a human right. The United States will not adopt that.
So, you know, I talked to lots of people in Cuba who
Yeah.
just living in these buildings. These buildings in the 1840s, 1850s.
I have a question for Tommy. You mentioned that people from other countries are coming over and
Yes.
flipping things over and doing what they wanted to do. Do you know what percentage of people that are coming over and doing
We've been trying to calculate that.
your
Yeah, so, well, what I can tell you is that 80% of the LSAC evictions that happened last year happened within the first 5 years of ownership, and increasingly, the owners do live overseas. Like right now, there was somebody, there's a lot of ownership from like Northern Europe, from China. I mean, it kind of runs the gamut. We do want to come up with a statistic around that, but it's hard. A lot of people have multiple homes, and, you know, like they might live here, but they also live in the Netherlands and somewhere there. But it's because this is something people are investing in. It's an investment for them, property. And they can make more money off their property if they evict tenants and then sell those units as condos.
thank you.
When I found out from my supervisor, you know, the city doesn't even know who owns, because I asked my supervisor, Jane Kim, one time, I said, well, you know, do you know how many other buildings are, these people that own our buildings own? No. Do you know who owns our buildings? Well, no, you know, she said it could be someone from more across the world, you know? So if the city doesn't know and keep track, how's Aaron gonna know exactly, you know, what's going on?
Yeah,
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, we actually do have all the property records right now that we had to actually obtain through under the table.
Under the table.
I mean, but it's ridiculous, like how much work for the mapping people to do to get data that should be just made public. For instance, even the LSAC eviction data, they won't tell us how many units are being evicted. We have to cross-reference that with the planning department. Whereas I just mapped out Santa Monica LSAC evictions and LA LSAC evictions, and they give you everything. But San Francisco has been very withholding of its information around evictions on property. Yeah.
You know, they try to hide like what you said. Our eviction notice said it was signed LLC. We didn't even know the name, he didn't even want us to know the name of who the owners were. Kind of like your thing, the LLC thing. I mean, you know, they try to hide.
Alias.
Try to hide who owns the building you're in. You know, and they can do it through all these mysterious LLCs, which is the supervisor told me.
Yeah, Urban Green, who's evicting Mary, they have 26 active LLCs right now, each attached to different units. So it's like, it also divides tenants, right? Because you might not know that you're being evicted by the same person who's evicting your neighbor, because you're paying rent to different LLCs. So there's 55 Dolores Street LLC and then 49 Ferrero Street LLC. They're both Urban Green and they're within a block of each other. But you have to actually do a lot of research to figure out that they're the same guy, David McCloskey.
Yeah, it's always a challenge.
I'll put again push on the group. Plaza. And we have one interesting advantage we have in this fight, in trying to fight this 10-story monster of what we call luxury housing and system mission, is that we have this amazing public space right there, right at the base of it. And it's a public space that isn't probably, used as creatively and wonderfully in service of the community as it could be. And so we're, we have this festival there, and the idea is that we'd like to have folks who care about this fight, who care about just fighting gentrification and the loss of what we love in the city in general, to join us and be there on a regular basis. We'd love to open this space up and have flyers, and if we can be there with you that weekend, we will, otherwise we will make sure we get a banner to put out and flyers, but that you're sort of representing this cause, but that you're, we're attracting people with honey in that sense, and just creating this really positive community space where the discussions can happen, and we can learn from each other, right? And it's exactly what happened today. Cindy was there, I'm sure she can tell you, I'm sure she had some amazing conversations with strangers that day. I think we need a lot more of that. I think we need to balance protests with these, creating these really positive community spaces that aren't just strictly for having a great time. They should be, but with this intent of getting people, educating new folks about the history of struggles in the city, struggles that are happening right now, what's at stake, how we got to this place, and how we fought to make this city so special in the first place. Because people come to San Francisco and they think, oh, San Francisco's amazing because it's San Francisco. It's this liberal place, and we've sparked all these movements because it's just San Francisco, and everybody here is on the same page, and everyone agrees that it's this amazing progressive place. It's not true. I mean, we've had to fight against corporate power and greed and the destruction of everything that's beautiful in the city time and time and time and time again. And the only reason that we have these amazing things, and we've led these amazing movements and sparked these amazing, civil rights causes that have had ripple effects across the country and sometimes globally, is because people fought like hell to make that happen. And because all these creative, wonderful people, celebrated life here and integrated all that, and that's what's so special about San Francisco. And we have to remember that. We can't just, we can't always be angry. We got to take some space to breathe and attract people with honey, so that we can let people know, hey, we're the ones who made this city so beautiful and creative, and all of us. And it didn't just get that way. But we're going to lose that if you don't help us, if you don't help us. Because every voting cycle, there's a big turnover of voters in this town, and quote unquote progressive power is waning. If you look at electorally what's happening here, the folks that serve the interests of the real estate developers and corporate power are dominating our city government right now. And we're managing to get a few things in just by grit and just determination. But that's going to get harder and harder and harder. The demographics are changing, and to some degree we can't stop that. But we can win a lot of these folks because if we do a better job of letting them know how this place came to be what it is, and what we have to do to hang on to what's beautiful and spread what's beautiful. That's I'm going to start there. Thanks for asking.
I got a response to that from me. There was this movie, 6 something apart.
6 degrees.
Separation?
6 degrees of separation. Who knows in this little community right here, who knows someone that knows someone that knows someone? You know what I'm saying? It's like each one of us, it's like a pebble in this big lake, and each one has when you drop the pebble, it creates concentric waves, right? And eventually, we're all made up of vibrations. Eventually, we all come together, or in unison, or in harmony, or disharmony. But at some point, we all come together. And although these people who have these mega bucks, that's buying out the heart of San Francisco. I say the heart in terms of those people who invest their roots, generations, heart and soul, arts, livelihood here. These people up here in the hierarchy here, they may be looking down, but what happens to when they buy out the whole San Francisco, say for some reason, we all get evicted. Those of us in the less than $70,000 bracket that's required to make the rent here. Say for some reason, all of us, and a lot of artists, I feel for the starving artist, which I was. I'm a semi-starving artist now. But relative to the competition that's there, it's like what I hear tell. It's like the David and Goliath. It's what's happening in terms of economics. What happens when when all of these supporting cast members that are supporting these superstars with the money, what happens when they, number one, they can't afford to live here, they're gonna move out. Who's gonna clean their laundry? Who's gonna teach their children? Who's gonna serve them their food? They? Who's gonna clean the streets? Oh, it's the working class. It's the working class that supports them. It's we, the frontline people that hold the roots of what makes this economic place what it is today. It is us who pay the taxes that these corporate greedy slumbags are not paying. The Google bus that pays $1 to park in a bus zone where you got to pay what, $271 if you park in there for less than a minute, like my paraprofessional mother did to drop off her daughter to go to school.
I think you raise a crucial question, because we are at a moment where we have succeeded in getting our message out. I remember December 2012, we did a press conference at 18th and Castro in front of the Christmas tree. We purposely did it there because of Scott Wiener, because at the time Scott Wiener was championing TICs and condo conversions. So it was kind of like a slap in the face to him that we did it in front of his Christmas tree. At 18th and Castro, we had 25 people who at that time were being Ellis Act evicted. They were from all over the city. We posed them all in front of the Christmas tree. We got tons of media there, and we announced that there was an epidemic of evictions in San Francisco. And it was really the first time that phrase had been used. And it got picked up by The Guardian a week or so later, but then nobody used the expression again until the Lee family got evicted, which was about 6 months later, the Lee family eviction, which was an elderly Chinese couple and their daughter who was disabled. And that's when I again started hearing the phrase. That's when the media started picking up the phrase eviction epidemic, and that really galvanized, I think, the tenant community in a way that it hadn't been galvanized in a long time. I think that 1049 was the next moment that really everything exploded around 1049. We're at a point now where I actually have media people saying to me, hey, I'm with you guys. Look, I got a friend who's getting evicted. I was evicted. You know, I know so many people who are being evicted. I get stopped almost every day. I live in the Castro. I work in the Mission. I walk straight down 16th Street every day to work and back. And I can't tell you, every day I'm getting stopped by someone who says to me, hey, you're that guy who does that housing rights stuff, right? And they say to me, and there are people who look like they're from various walks of life. Some of them look like tech people. And they say, you know, blah, 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 blah. I think we've created this buzz. We have made evictions a household word. I think 90% of the people in the city are with us in that the evictions have to stop, the rents have to go down, there has to be affordable housing. I think all those things, I think most people in the city are with us. How do we get them to the next level where when Mary Phillips is being evicted, they're going to stand with us outside and block the doors so the sheriff can't? That's the thing that I don't think as progressives we've ever figured out. And it happens accidentally sometimes, like at Stonewall or at other things like that, where suddenly it explodes and the people are there. I don't know what causes that to happen. I wish I did. In all my years as an activist, I don't have the formula. I wish we did. And if we can find the formula, we can win the battle and bring down capitalism. So.
Yeah, and this notion that tech is going to bail out capitalism, this white knight rushing up. You know, there was a tech slump. That not all the companies slumped during that tech crash, but there were some that went under from the first tech one. And I read a recent article. You know, San Francisco had a really strong tourist industry. There's other ways the city can make money, and the tourists come to see the artists. The tourists come to see the people, the diversity. We don't have to rely on tech to have a city that has money. San Francisco is one of the tourist destinations outside of Paris, France, or something. So there's this reliance on tech bailing out the banks, bailing out the tech companies, you know, with our tax dollars, it's all going the wrong way. And Mayor Lee used to give a lot of lip service before this tech boom happened, the second one, about the mid-market street artists. He believed that mid-market street artists were gonna help the city. I've been there for 10 years. We had one thing come through, a questionnaire, are you an artist, what do you do? Never heard anything else. We've been there, there's all kinds of artists in my building, at least there were when we all were there. You know, and we could, you know, San Francisco used to be a music capital back in the 60s, and music was coming out of here from the Grateful Dead to the Jefferson Airplane, the Sly Stone. The music, you know, was coming out of the Bay Area, you know, and it could happen again. I mean, you know, if the tech wasn't drowning stars out and pushing people out, you know.
What's the flip side of that? Well, a related question would be like, what do you need most? What do you need people to check? Because I feel like I know friends like, and they're actually really sympathetic, but it's like, so what do they do? You know, besides, do they show up? That's the.
I honestly think showing up is like really what they do need to do. I think a lot of people in tech seem to think they have such great skills that they can use those skills technocratically to solve a problem, but they also have bodies, and I think that's what I think is imploring people in tech to think about and to utilize, because it's that riot's not going to happen online, especially when the NSA surveilling us, you know, all in the numbers and things, right? And also like what Andy was bringing up, our public spaces are being increasingly encroached upon. If this Maximus development happens at the 16th Street Art Plaza, that's a loss of a huge public space in the Mission. With Sit-Lie, I mean, right now the DPW is spraying down the sidewalks in the TL and on Market Street so that homeless people can't even like hang out for a minute. And they're using some sort of orange chemical. Every time I smell it, it gives me a headache. And I'm not living there, but like we need to like preserve public spaces really badly, because otherwise the only way we're going to communicate with each other is going to be in private spaces and we're online, and a revolution is not going to happen in private spaces or online.
So,
I'm feeling pretty hopeless these days, so often just take this with a grain of salt. But I would contest that it's a movement right now. I think there's individuals resisting, and it's often the same people. And there's victories like your house, which are temporary, which actually seem like the best we can hope for right now is like keeping people in their houses to die or live out the rest of their life. That feels like what winning might look like right now. But I think, to me, I'm not a big believer that tech or politicians or anyone above us is going to solve the problem. And I think we have to be much more thinking in terms of collective strategies. So thinking about what would it look like if whole blocks collectively didn't pay rent together, or land trust thought about strategic areas where several buildings together were land trusted, because that pulls down the whole neighborhood market value. Or instead of sort of, and which to me it's so hard in this culture, especially San Francisco, it's so hyper focused on individual, entrepreneurial, you know, sell yourself, and it's so hard not for us to be. I've just been really thick because I'm in a house that's facing eviction too, and it's like the intensity of anxiety when everyone's like, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? And I completely understand how anxiety producing it is and how alone people feel. So what I liked about doing the 16th Street Plaza stuff so far is kind of like we're letting a lot of stuff happen without knowing what's going to happen, and creating, like the night before I'm part of a collective space, the 16th Mission, and we just put out this call that anyone could come and make anything they wanted to do the next day on that during the festival. And I was actually really surprised. I mean, 25 people showed up, and I think I knew like 3 of them. And they were all from different groups in the neighborhood. They were just really excited. There was a teacher for the school, and we've been trying for months to try to find some of the teachers. And there she, all of a sudden I'm talking, oh, what do you do? She goes, oh, I'm the dark. And we're like, what? And the Clarion Alley people showed up, and someone from the women's building who I've never met. Just all these people just showed up. And I think we just get stuck in these like, oh, I read this article today about how, written by someone in the tech industry, where they're like, you know, we hire people that look like us and act like us, and you know, it just becomes self-replicating, the tech industry. So why is it 90% males under 30 that, you know, blah blah? But I think we do that as like we sort of get comfortable with who we know and the circles of who we call out. So I really appreciated 16th Street Plaza organizing, because it came together through a group of people that normally would never be in the same room together, and most of us disagree profoundly on almost everything. But we just have this kind of like, we really have to kind of listen and learn from each other and take risks, and I really appreciated it. So, you know, even that day we did the Plaza Festival, it's just like so many people just came out there and did stuff that I had never, and that's pretty remarkable. And I've been doing a lot of stuff in the plaza lately, just being out there. And what I've also really understood is like having a table with a bunch of literature, just any anti-eviction group or anyone can put literature down, so more and more people bring me literature and just leave it there. I just need cold coffee, not cups. Just give out free nice coffee. And I'm just out there for hours. And what I noticed after 2 or 3 weeks was people just start, it's like here's stuff on the table. People just start coming to the table, can I leave my literature, can I take some more, can I, and usually experience as an organizer is having to go, please take my literature. So that tells me that people, like you're saying, really want to do something. But I just think we have to be more creative. What does it look like for collective resistance? Because I honestly think that's the only thing that's going to win. And like your house is a real inspiration, or the house on 23rd that organized collectively. But what does it look like to expand that so it's more than just individual small buildings? And the other thing the 16th Street Coalition did, for instance, which I really appreciate, we spent months coming up with this list of really radical demands, actually. Where we want, until everybody's housed, we don't want new housing built, you know, from the bottom up. And I thought it was a really cool demand. Like, let's start with the people that have the least housing and work our way up. And then if we get to the people that need $10 million houses, fine, but we probably won't. And, you know, and so we have these like 4 really, really powerful, and we want community-controlled decision-making. Until development should stop, until we as a community decide. Really powerful utopian demands. But the media picked them up. We did a forum at Victoria Theater, and the media picked them up and just listed those demands as if self-evidently they were crazy. They didn't even comment. They just like, well, these people think they want this. And I was like, cool, because these like visionary ideas are out there. But a few weeks ago, another building a block away from that, next on the other side of the Redstone building, if you know 16th and Mission, there's now a 7-story building proposed that's coming faster. And I really appreciate our coalition of, we're like, all these people are going, well, there's this other building, and now we're like starting to link those two together to oppose that multiple buildings, and instead of being smart, like if we had this discussion, oh no, we can't get sidetracked, we just have to focus on our one building, and then we really thought, wait a minute, this is a block away, you know, like why don't we, I really appreciate a coalition of people together to wait, this makes no sense, the collective resistance of a bunch of spaces.
I just piggyback on, you know, when you ask what can people do, I think people should do what they like to do.
Yeah.
Like, I think, you know, there are going to be people who go and knock on doors to organize. And thank God that there aren't, like, those people are our salvation year in, year out. There are people that are going to go stand in front of a Google bus and stop the Google bus, and it's going to make an international news sensation. It's going to bring attention to an issue that we've been trying to, like, and thank God that someone is doing that. But some people are never going to knock on doors. Some people are never going to stand in front of a Google bus. And to expect them to do that is unrealistic. It's never going to happen. And your friends that are in tech, or your friends that want to help but don't know how to help, what do they like to do? You know, I mean, what's fun for them? You know, okay, now like, let's find a way to incorporate that, because we actually need everyone to get involved, and it's unrealistic that people are going to get involved on our terms. And that's why, like, opening this space up, it's like, come and do what you want to do, it's going to help. And it does. When somebody who likes to silk screen or design like amazing t-shirts, you know, does that on their time and then brings that and adds it, it gives us so much more positivity. It makes it look to a passerby like, wow, this is like the rad people from our community. And all the artists and all the things I love about San Francisco, they're on board with this. I probably should be too, you know? So I think, like, what should people do? They should do what they want to do, and they should connect it to the fight in their neighborhood. They should connect it to this fight. They should connect it to their, like, is their friend getting evicted or whatever? Whatever they want to connect it to, but I think they bring what they like to do and connect it to saving San Francisco.
Maybe we need to make that more, like, I remember, what's her name, she did a little presentation at ATA, that movie theater place, on how the Google bus and actions of that. Leslie. And she just was describing each one, and then at the end of this one who was like, she's like, you mean there's only like, whatever, 10 of you? Or 8? She's like, 10 of you have been doing that? And then she's like, I could do that with my friends, unless it was like, yeah, how many?
You need 3 people to
3
step
people,
with.
okay,
That's all you
but
need.
that was, I was so struck by, like, that seems self-evident that a few people could just do something, but most people don't. I think we're so beaten down. So maybe I really think we need to do a better job of, instead of just doing what we do, it's like, well, we can organize, like a lot of us, I'm an overly responsible organizer, not just people. I could just do that much easier than explaining it to someone, but that's not good. And the way we need to make transparent how easy it is to just do something. Because it seems mysterious, but it actually isn't. You could just go stencil something on the sidewalk, or knock and talk to your neighbor's doors, or hang banners, or organize your, I mean, it actually, but most people I think have this mysterious thing. It's as mysterious as like when you get evicted, like what's the law? And I think it's just as mysterious. So I'm just really struck by maybe we need to do more of that, and exactly just say, well, here's how the Google buses got stopped, or here's how we organized the festival, or here's how you organize your building. That's why I appreciate going to your articles, because I think it's very empowering. The pieces where you guys talk about that's very important. Because I think people are going to know.
You find more articles about us not on Google if you Google us, but if you DuckDuckGo.
Oh,
For 1049 Market.
Really?
It's the Google stuff, there's all these other
Oh,
stuff that gets in the way.
Why?
I think the other piece, if you have tech friends who want to do something and they don't want to be out in the streets, I would say tell them to write a check to the land trust and make sure they
Yes.
Yeah.
They can write checks for it.
You know, I tell this story, and some people look at me strangely when I tell the story. I was at a meeting in the mayor's office at some point because mayor has this stupid big tent meeting of housing people that he's brought together. It's total bullshit. I mean, he's got bankers in there and real estate people and speculators in the room with all these housing activists. Anyway, I went to this meeting more out of curiosity because I wanted to hear what bullshit was going to, how bad the bullshit was going to be, and it's pretty bad. Ron Conway was there. And Ron Conway got up and made some stupid remarks about, gee, I never realized that San Francisco had so many rent-controlled units, or something like that. You know, we all look at each other like, God. But then he turns around and he says, you know, and I really want to help, and I really think the tech people need to get more involved in helping to save these rent-controlled buildings. And I thought, okay. I went up to him afterwards. And I said, hi, you don't know me, but I was the moderator for the Crappies outside of the Crunchies. And he laughed. You know, I thought that would break the ice, you know, and I was hoping he had a sense of humor, and he did, you know, he laughed about it. I said, if you really sincerely want to help, I've got an idea for you. I said, it's the way you can really, really help the situation and save rent control building. I said, get your tech friends together, raise $1 billion, give it to the land trust, and it can only be used to buy rent control buildings that are being sold. I said, you can probably buy, you know, 850 4-unit, 5-unit rent-controlled buildings, and we can preserve them forever. And I thought, you know, the guy's going to laugh at me, he's going to call me, you know, get away from me, you radical commie. But he did. He kind of said, you know, I've heard about land trust, and I'm kind of interested in the idea. He said, do you think they would talk to me? I said, absolutely. I said, I'll get them in touch with you. So he gave me actually his assistant's card. He gave me Jeremy, whatever his name is, from Citigroup or whatever that group is that he's got that funds all these things. And the land trust is now in conversation with Ron Conway's group. It looks like they're going to get some money. I don't know. They're not going to get $1 billion probably, but whatever they get will buy another building. And like you said, Cindy, because right now the land trust is not competitive. The frustrating thing, because I work with the land trust, the frustrating thing is the most heartbreaking thing. I had a building on Tree, a little further that way. 5 units, all the tenants wanted to do land trust. I brought the land trust, I organized the tenants, brought the land trust in, the land trust met with the tenants fell in love with the idea, they wanted to do it. Land trust approached their landlord said, I want $1.5 million, period. The land trust said, we can only go $1 million. Maybe 1.1. Will you sell it to us, help save these people? The tenants pleaded with the landlord. The landlord had a bid from a speculator who was offering them more money. And in the end, the landlord sold it to the speculator, not the land trust. The land trust cannot be competitive. It can't. And unfortunately, we're living, again, in this capitalist society where they've got to try to be competitive if realistically we're going to acquire these buildings. The one on 23rd Street that you mentioned, it was because the landlord believed in the land trust and was willing to sell it to the land trust. That's why that happened. That's why we've been able to get some of these buildings for the landlord. Latomo was the same situation. The landlord wanted to protect his tenants, So we've got to make the land trust somehow competitive, unfortunately. They got to play that game, unfortunately, at this moment in time, because we're totally, you know, these speculators are easily swipe up these buildings. So I don't know what's going to happen with Mount Conway, but I'm hoping that we get a good chunk of money that will at least save a few more buildings, you know?
One more thing while we're talking about tech and news media or tech and not come out in the streets, like, I really think we need more people in tech to really help fight to create open source technologies and to promote like DuckDuckGo or the Tor browser or non-surveil email accounts. And I think actually one of the reasons why less people are in the streets is because more people are worried that they're going to end up in jail if they go on the streets. And a lot of that happens now through online surveillance. And I think a lot of people have really, you know, high fancy tech skills that actually could be utilized to actually help those of us in the streets and to help create information that's not being so dictated and surveilled and channeled by these hands of big corporations that don't like when we're in the streets and want to really be, I mean, yesterday we were calling Google the evil empire, and it really is in a lot of ways. So I think it would be great if folks that are in tech who aren't maybe working for these companies, or even if they are working for these companies, to pressure those companies to create less, you know, totalitarian information systems.
Well, that's true. I read an article about Facebook, and the way that he made a lot of money was because Tim Berners-Lee, who invented the World Wide Web, wanted it open for everybody. And so the guy from Facebook came in and they did their big thing. And the article says, look, they're not even giving open architecture to help us make it. They just, all of a sudden, they're acting like, well, we're it, and it's our internet and all this. When that's how they started with nothing, and, well, not nothing, they were Stanford graduates, but that was the idea, was that to open it up. Facebook would open it up more so more people could make money and become their own little techie entrepreneurs, but they're just trying to close it up and say it's just for us, but it was really for all of us, you know, the internet. Yeah, so that's exactly that open architecture thing, what I read about. Yeah.
We're getting to see what's happening.
I go for